Hello, BookTube, and welcome back to People April. People? A BookTube event created by Roz at Skelly Dandling About the Books and Elizabeth, Bookends and Books, all about biography, all about life writing, all about the infinite variety of such things and where they can go, where they can take you. Full dress formal biography is my favorite kind of reading, so I've been indulging myself inordinately in People April, and I've been letting my choices. I'm adding something biographical to every night's reading, usually, and I've been letting my choices be dictated at least as much by the whims of chance as by any kind of program, because most of the reading that I'm doing at night, once the world settles down and the bean goes to sleep, is a bit programmatic. Most of it is the ongoing churn of new releases in the American book market in the 15 or 16 genres that interest me. It's just what is next on the horizon that I'm reading to encompass all of that, whether it's a print book or a galley or an ebook. But I've been adding biography to the end of that, and I've been letting whim deal with it a lot. And I definitely did that last night, which has a BookTube story behind it. The other day I was having a live stream, and the live streams are a lot of fun. They're enormous amounts of fun. And surprisingly to me anyway, my live streams sometimes attract new people. Why on earth would you log on to a live stream of a channel that you don't know? I don't know, but people do. And I'm not scorning it at all. I welcome those people when they do show up. But that runs the risk, of course, because it's only new people on this channel who will ask me a dreaded "Have you read?" question, a question that starts with "Have you read?" Which Steve has an inordinate dislike of. Slowly I turned, step by step, inch by inch, Niagara Falls. So Steve has an inordinate thin-skinned nature. It's comic, of course. You all joke with me about it, but about "Have you read?" questions, especially if the book is fairly well known. And somebody did that just on a recent Steve stream. Somebody said, have you read The Voyage of the Narwhal by Andrea Barrett? Which was reviewed everywhere. It was talked about all the time for a whole season when it was out in America. So, of course, I had read it. But I hadn't read it in a while. And no sooner did that little comic flap happen on a live stream than the book showed up at the Brattle Bookshop. Beautiful hardcover with a plastic dust jacket on it. So I grabbed it and I reread it. And loved it. I'll talk about it in another video, but I liked it a lot more than I did the first time, and that's purely because I was not ready for the subtleties that Andrea Barrett was doing. Probably that would be true in all of her books. Although I remember liking this book more than any of her others, even when I was reading them as they were coming out. So it could be that this will be my favorite anyway. But I read it, and I was glad that I did. I love that way that BookTube can sort of push me into places that I might not otherwise go. Sometimes I get nose to the grindstone with that ongoing tread of new releases and don't allow for the element of influence or even whimsy that keeps me eternally young and sexy. I really need to allow for that, or I might get old. So, I love that BookTube does that. I love that I can never tell when BookTube will do that. I can never tell when a fugitive mention by somebody of something that I dismissed decades ago will suddenly get me thinking again and reaching out to try it again, often with wonderful results. And in this case, it was The Voyage of the Narwhal that did it, because one of the main characters, the main character in The Voyage of the Narwhal, is a guy named Erasmus. He's a naturalist named Erasmus. And I think he's clearly patterned on the grandfather of Charles Darwin, Erasmus Darwin, who was a naturalist. And when it came time for me to spin the wheel last night for a biography, I went to a biography of Erasmus Darwin. This is by Desmond King Hele, Hele. It's a full dress biography of Erasmus Darwin, and I don't think I ever read this. I think this came out 20, 25 years ago, thereabouts. I don't think I ever read it, even though I find Erasmus Darwin fascinating and have read his work. Even though I've done that, I don't think I'd ever read this. Like Charles Darwin, he's a wonderful prose stylist of a different period, but still he's a wonderfully readable guy. And I knew already from the introduction. I read a couple of collected works of Erasmus Darwin, and they all had brief biographical sketches. So I knew already what to expect. I knew that this was a larger-than-life guy, as much of an introvert and a polymath as Charles Darwin was an extrovert and a polymath as Charles Darwin was an introvert and a specialist. He was the exact opposite in every way. Big, happy, boisterous, robust, loud, funny, friendly, prone to gigantic mirths and gigantic melancholy. He's just a big, larger-than-life figure. I knew that already, and I knew that from a very specific place. It was hinted at in those biographical introductory sketches, but I knew it from somewhere else, and we're going to get to that. So I picked up this book. I thought I would add this. I didn't have much to do in the way of so-called official reading last night, so I was up for a full-dress biography, and this was fantastic. Just fantastic. It was all of those larger-than-life things, but it also dealt sensitively with Erasmus Darwin's writing, which was pretty varied. It wasn't just what you would think. It wasn't just stuffy quasi-scientific papers for the folks at the institute. There was a lot of adventurous artistic chances that he took in a lot of what he wrote. And also, this author is wonderful at digging into his personal life, at excavating the complexities of his personal life and even the complexities of his health. This is another example. There have been quite a few for April is why I love this event so much. This is another example where if I saw a copy of this for $1 at the Brattle, I would get it. I would spend that much. I would get $1 of this, a $1 copy of this at the Brattle, if it were a perfect condition hardcover with a dust jacket. I'm not hard to please. I really, really enjoyed this, and I could easily see myself reading another Erasmus Darwin biography, but I seem to recall that I dipped into one that was later than this, that was shallow. I seem to remember I wasn't commissioned to read it. I had a lot of other stuff to read. I think it was probably 10 years ago, maybe 5 years ago. I seem to remember reading another biography of Erasmus Darwin and getting the impression, I didn't read the whole thing, and I got the impression after very little time that this author is not going to do it for me at all. He's mainly looking for zingers here. Because this got more and more serious as it went along, and this is a serious full-dress biography that I really, really enjoyed. And it put me in the mind to read something else. It put me in the mind to reread something that I have not read in forever. And so I tracked it down. This is by the science fiction author Charles Sheffield, who has never really done it for me. Even his Proteus books, he wrote a little string of books along a similar line, set in a shared science fiction universe that I think are his most popular things. Certainly they were his most popular things in the United States. That never really did it for me. The one thing of his that I read that I liked more than any other was a fix-up collection, a mass-market paperback that I had once upon a time. I found the cover of the very edition that I had, but I don't have it anymore. What I wouldn't give to find it. It was this. It was Erasmus Maest, in which Sheffield imagines the naturalist, bon vivant, world-traveling adventures of Erasmus Darwin, which he had. He had plenty of those adventures. Only the world that he's examining, as you could tell from this cover, includes lots of supernatural stuff. Lots of fantastical beings out of Gulliver's Travels or the Loch Ness Monster or whatnot. And these were all, Sheffield pulls them all together into a stitchwork of a narrative. And I remembered liking this, but I liked it a whole lot more on this reread. A whole lot more. Not necessarily for anything biographical or non-biographical about Erasmus Darwin, but for the prose, for the execution of the thing. And that got me thinking, not about Charles Sheffield, but about Jack Williamson, science fiction author, who I found a best of, and I read the very affectionate introduction to that book, and then a bunch of the selections in that book, and then I read all of Three for the Legion. And I had always thought about Williamson and Sheffield pretty much the same. For decades, I thought, well, they're competent at English prose, but there's nothing exciting about them at all. It's just competent, that's all. So they're never going to do anything for me. And Williamson very much did something for me when I revisited him. And this did too. Maybe not as much, but this did too, which makes me think that maybe I should look at the Proteus books again by Sheffield, and maybe lots of other stuff as well. This was a prolific author. As far as I know, he might even still be alive. I'm assuming Erasmus Darwin is dead. Although it's utterly mind-boggling to think that there are tortoises alive in England who were alive when Erasmus Darwin was alive. My point being, I wonder, when I was finished rereading this thing, it basically was a read, not a reread, because it had been so long and I wasn't happy with it the first time I read it. Although there's one scene in here, it has nothing to do with dogs, but the minute I got to it, I instantly remembered where I was when I read it the first time and every dog who was with me. It was incredible. I enjoyed this. In other words, I enjoyed a Charles Sheffield. And now I'm wondering not only if I can find mass market paperbacks of all of Sheffield's stuff, but also I think he was much bigger in the UK than he was in the United States, and I'm wondering if in the UK there was a big collected stories of Charles Sheffield. Big fat volume of the collected stories. I wonder if that exists. I guess I could look on eBay or maybe research the author on Wikipedia or a science fiction encyclopedia or something like that and see what's out there. I'm not sure that I would go shopping for Charles Sheffield. I think what I'm meaning to say is that both of these things will make me more receptive at the Brattle. I want a copy of this, and I would definitely now grab any Charles Sheffield. I would certainly like the old mass market copy of Erasmus Magister, but I would grab any old Sheffield now, I think. So, people, April is expanding my horizons in all directions, even science fiction, which I doubt that Elizabeth or Roz would ever read voluntarily. It's expanding my horizons even there. Charles Sheffield, a science fiction author I had disregarded, I had dismissed as workmanlike. Not bad, but not exciting in any way. And now all of a sudden, if his works were to show up, I would not ignore them. And that's thanks to People April, which only has a few days left. So I'm going to keep going. But anyway, I'm going to wrap this up for now, but I'll be back. Thank you, BookTube.